we're going to move people around. We're going to try to create matchups given the opponent. And I look at it like this. Whatever it looks like going into the year, I hope we have a bunch of stars at the end of the season.
Hello, everybody. Welcome in on this Friday, Football Friday, Maize and Blue review, Michigan football and basketball. Today, that was Michigan defensive coordinator Jesse Minter on the no-star Michigan defense. If you've been following along, you know that Jim Harbaugh said he likes this no-star Michigan defense, and it could be better than last year's defense. And Jesse Minter and others are picking up on that. And he doesn't mind not having any stars at the beginning as long as he has a bunch of stars at the end. And who's going to argue with that when it comes down with Mr. Minter? It's great to be here on a Friday. I always like, we're here weekdays at 1 o'clock talking about the latest in Michigan sports. We're going to get right into the show. I just want to say two things. One is that I always like doing Friday shows the best. During the football season, it's a football Friday, and you know you're 24 hours or less away from kickoff and all the action for the weekend's events. And then, you know, Friday, for most people, generally, they're looking forward to the weekend. They don't have work going on and whatnot. Some people do. But generally, people are in the best mood that they could be on a Friday. So I'm in a pretty good mood. I'm ready to go, ready to kick this thing off. The other thing that I say is that I tell you at the end of the show, sometimes at the end of it, and look, that's the first time that maybe my internet connection is not going well. But Maize and Blue Review, you want to join up to find out the there a couple minutes ago, and there's all kinds of practice news. We are talking about practice. I mean, reps, and there's the Lions have their first exhibition game tonight. So, you know, it's happening. It's coming around. It was like 50 degrees this morning when I was outside. Actually wore a long sleeve shirt out at the park. So all of that to say that if you want to know what's going on, ladies, in recruiting up to the split second, and what's going on in practice and in football and in basketball, well, you know if you're a member of the Maize and Blue Review. So I wanted to get that and let everybody know how you can be dialed in and know everything that's going on. So today, said we'll get right into it. Here is what we're talking about. The coordinators both had news conferences yesterday. Jesse Minter, a co-defensive coordinator, along with co-defensive coordinator Steve Clinkscale. Clink, for those that know him. I've never called him Clink myself. Actually, I've never called him Coach Clinkscale either. But I have watched and read a transcript of both of their news conferences, and I will talk about the most important things that they had to say. Practice, we are talking about practice still, and I have some practice news and notes and updates for you. That's coming up straight ahead. Also, U of M basketball, Juwan Howard spoke with the media yesterday morning, and the Wolverines are heading to Europe for a 3-game, 10-day trip. I wish I was there. I wish I was, you know, I've said this a few times. I wouldn't mind being Tom Wyrot, you know, the sports information director at Michigan. Tom Wyrot, who was my sports editor when I worked at the Eastern Echo a long time ago, and Y has found a home with the Michigan basketball team. And, you know, he works really hard, and, you know, it doesn't look like it during the games because, you know, he's just sitting there at the press row, just hanging out. But, you know, he has to do a lot of work, and, you know, and get, you know, he sometimes the looks are deceiving, but Wyrot, I'm sure, you know, heading over to Europe. I mean, what's he going to do? Hey, here's the Eiffel Tower. Let's go. So I wouldn't mind being with Tom Wyrot and Juwan Howard and the rest of the crew over to Europe. I'm not. But I am a little, is it envious or envious? That's what I am. I am envious of the whole traveling group going over to Europe. I've always wanted to see Greece. France is beautiful. Let's go. So we'll have some notes from what Juwan Howard had to say yesterday as well. As always, you can join us via the feedback, anything that we're talking about, like the captain or Adrian or Ricky. The guys are here. They are ready to go. And one thing, you're watching Maize and Blue Review of Michigan football and basketball today. Normally most people are Michigan fans, but there are a few. And one got in yesterday. He was like, everything you're talking about sounds so great. Michigan's not going to lose a game. They're going to be awesome. And then I had to take a step back and I'm like, it probably does sound. I sit here and, talk about how good everything looks for the football team from top to bottom. And I had to tell the guy, like, my gut reaction was to tell him, hey, that's because everything does look really good. And then I went back and I was reviewing the tape yesterday and I was thinking, well, does that have me coming off sound a little bit, I don't know, arrogant, more kind of a jerk? Or is that telling him straight up the truth? I believe this. I am glad, like I wouldn't have minded doing this show in other years, but I'm really glad that I had this off season where Michigan was the defending Big Ten champs, because the previous decade and a half, I did not enjoy my off seasons as much as I enjoyed this off season as it pertains to Michigan football. And a lot of the stuff that goes on Twitter, exchanging barbs, back and forth, you're a this and you're a that. And I always took it, for the last almost close to 20 years. I said, look, for the winner goes the spoils. And I'm not trash talking Ohio State when Michigan is not beating them. But, here you are. And I saw Rich Eisen last week, getting it in there, which was good. Let's start out with the co-defensive coordinator, Jesse Minter. He talked yesterday. And Minter, you heard him right at the top. And, there's this notion that Michigan doesn't have any stars on their defense.
We're going to move people around. We're going to try to create matchups given the opponent. And I look at it like this. Whatever it looks like going into the year, I hope we have a bunch of stars at the end of the season.
All right. So that to me was the winning quote from Jesse Minter. Now, he talked for a long time, and he likes the scheme that they're running, the 3-4 that Mike McDonald brought in last year's defensive coordinator. He has a familiarity with the Ravens, with Mike McDonald. They are very similar, McDonald. In fact, their demeanors, if you wanted to tell me that you thought Jesse Minter was Mike McDonald 2.0, I wouldn't argue with you. Now, in fairness to Jesse Minter, does he want to be called Mike McDonald 2.0? No, he's his own guy. But even Minter admitted yesterday that people have said that these two guys are a lot alike. I mean, they're like the same height. They don't really look alike, but they are cut from the same cloth. And they look at defense. Minter said they look at it differently, although McDonald, who was a linebacker coach, and Minter, depending on where you're at, you're a little bit closer to the line as a linebacker coach. You look at it more, in the concept of a linebacker. Minter talked about doing that from the safety position. Obviously, if you're a coordinator, you got to look at it from every position, all 11 that are out there, and how it all works together. But a lot of similarities when it comes down to this defense and when it comes down to Jesse Minter and Mike McDonald, where you could say at least this Michigan defense, if you liked what Michigan was doing last year, it's going to look very similar. You're going to have a lot of guys, and you got to you're going to be running back, a lot of different things that way to keep an eye on. But Minter said he likes the scheme. He's familiar with it. And that's what he had to say about starring at the end of the season with the no-name defense. And, Minter gave a lot of coach speak. Now, if you like coach speak, I don't mind. Like, look at it, it's August. This is what you get. Jesse Minter is a coach. Were you expecting him to come out and say, yeah, you know what, Mike Morris, he's going to be the next Aiden Hutchinson? We're pretty sure of that. Jenkins, he reminds me of his old man. He's put on 20 pounds. He's going to be a terrorizer. Mozzie Smith's going to be an All-American. I mean, like, they don't say things like that. They talk like coaches do. And Minter sounds very confident, very much like a coach, which he is. So that's what you get. Now, if you like coach speak, like I was saying, go and watch Minter and what he had to say. And, you can come away with a better feel, but I wanted to give you the feel that not only is this defense going to look a lot like last year, Minter and McDonald are. You had one of those masks that you could put on, and it was Mike McDonald, and they had the call sheet. You might not know any difference on what's going on with the Michigan defense this year, and that's good. The only thing I didn't like about Mike McDonald last year was the Michigan State game. He got it handed to him. That can happen. You got to credit the other team in this case, and especially credit Kenneth Walker, who was awesome in that game. But enough with that. Overall, McDonald did a good job, and Minter picks up. And what do we say? We're going to talk coach speak. Let's talk broadcaster speak. He's picking up the baton, and he's just going to keep it going, picking up where McDonald left off and advancing it down the field. You had another coach, the co-defensive coordinator, speaking yesterday, and that is Steve Clinkscale, the defensive coordinator along with the defensive passing game coordinator. That's a long title. Here's Steve Clinkscale, the co-defensive coordinator and defensive passing game coordinator. Let's just call him Clink. Clink is from Youngstown, Ohio. And while Clink put out a lot of coach speak in the 10 minutes or so that he spoke yesterday, you get a pretty good idea what it would be like playing for Clink. And we do have some of that audio, and I can't get enough myself. It is coach speak, but I can't get enough Clink. I'm ready to play for him right now. Here's a little Steve Clinkscale audio.
I tell people all the time, by nature, where I'm from, like you have to have aggressiveness. You have to have a mentality that, you're going to take it to them and not get hit in the mouth. And they're doing that. They're covering a lot better, and they're being a lot more aggressive. They understand what they're doing. You hear me say that word all the time, understanding. And to me, that's a big piece of coaching and teaching. But I see those guys definitely a lot better as a unit now than they were last year.
There's Steve Clinkscale specifically talking about the secondary. And anytime you hear, he fires you up. You want to get ready. You want to feel like football's right around the corner. You want to kind of get in that mindset. Listen to Steve Clink. He wants aggressiveness. Those are the kind of things I like to hear from a guy that is a coach on defense, that his team has an understanding, communication, all of those things, but want to come in and not get hit in the mouth. You want to have that mentality that you're going to take it to them. Good job, Clink, on explaining. That's what I took away from the coordinators yesterday. Let's move to the next item. And now we're talking about practice. Practice has been going on. Today is the 12th. It has been going on since Wednesday the 3rd. So they have over, a week and a half that they have been going at it. And we have heard from different coaches. We've heard from both coordinators, and we have heard from Jim Harbaugh. And these are some of my takeaways from the first week and a half of fall camp. Zeke Berry is a true freshman that was not in for spring. He wears number 10. Clink was mentioning Berry's good instincts. Jim Harbaugh mentioned Will Johnson and Zeke Berry. Zeke Berry was the first freshman defensive back out of his mouth. These are not coincidences when you know enough about coaches and coach speak, and particular Michigan coach speak. Zeke Berry is one of those freshmen that you just want to keep in mind in the first week and a half of camp. He keeps getting mentioned, and the things that they're saying about him, it's not just like, yeah, we like him. It's not just, boy, down the line, he could really be something. They're talking about Zeke Berry. It wouldn't be a surprise to me that when it comes down to, look, the safety position right now, there's a lot to know when you play safety, even more than corner. tough, safeties like the quarterback of the defensive backs. You got to know all the checks. You got to do all the different things that you are required for being the last line of defense. And sure enough, Makari Page and Rod Moore, who interestingly enough was not in for spring last year and really came on and a starter by the end of the year, made big plays in that Penn State game. In particular, I'm thinking about, Dotson on the 4th and 1 in Happy Valley this year to secure the 21-17 victory. It was Rod Moore that was in Dotson's back pocket, but you hear a lot. I feel Zeke Berry and Rod Moore are kind of the similarities there, but Makari Page, RJ Moten, and Rod Moore, those three, and you're looking for that fourth safety. If you're asking me right now, based on what I hear from the coaches, I would say that true freshman Zeke Berry would be in the mix. Now, I have DJ Turner and Roman Wilson's name up there. If I was putting a trending list together of who are the top 5 trending players that are talked about the most from the coaches, the media, the fans, the message boards, sports, everything, well, DJ Turner would be on that list. And DJ Turner, a lot of people with good reason talked about Mozzie Smith because he was number 1 on that Feldman freak list. Well, DJ Turner was on that list too. And DJ Turner, when they talked about some of the things that he does besides playing corner, just his physical prowess, the speed, the cone drill that they would expect him maybe to be the best ever in a 3 cone. When you say you're running a sub 4.340, I thought it was a mistake when I heard Jim Harbaugh say it. Now you come back and you've got Feldman talking about it, and this is not hand time, laser time. GPS was supposed to be the best technology in being able to track 40 times. And not only is DJ Turner sub 4.3, but so too is Roman Wilson. If you've been following this podcast, you know that I picked Roman Wilson to lead the Wolverines this year out of all of the wide receivers that they have and in the incredible talent that is in that wide receiver room. I think Roman Wilson is going to catch the most touchdowns this year for the Wolverines. Part of that is that he takes the top off of the defense. Let's put it in a couple other ways. He's got real good speed. Let's put it another way. He might be the college Tyreek Hill. He might be the college cheetah. Roman Wilson, the cheetah of the Michigan wide receivers, running a sub 4.3, staying right with, according to Jim Harbaugh, DJ Turner. Now, this last one is something I complain about once in a while, and that is players playing both ways. I don't like it. When you talk about players like that freak list, there was 100, and you consider how many players are in college football, it's like, you're like 1% of already great athletes all over the place, which, is why people like that list. I mean, you're talking about the best of the best. Well, in my experience in watching college football, it's less than 1% of the players that can play two ways in college ball. It's like 0.001% of college football players. Guys like Charles Woodson can play both ways. Hines Ward back in the day. How many players can you even name that have gone both ways that you're not talking about a big fat tackle, playing fullback, or like Refrigerator Perry way back in 85, blocked for Walter Payton a few times, got a touchdown in the Super Bowl. He's like, how many other players in the NFL have gone both ways? In modern NFL, I'm not talking about, the 40s or something. I'm talking about modern football. 0? Did Adamika Sue line up at fullback for the line? No, he kicked an extra point, missed it. Hit the upright. So my complaint is this is not a good setup. I get, being able to learn two positions on defense. You're in the defensive room, you're in the, all that, but playing both sides of the ball is something I am against. And I'll just tell you why I'm against it. Nobody does it. And in all in the professional ranks. There's a reason for that. Nobody does it in college football because you have to be 0.01%, and nothing against Mike Sanderstil, who I love. And during the pandemic, I said I was his cousin, so I could try to get into some of the Michigan games, and it didn't work. And a great leadership and everything else, but pick a side of the ball. Let's not have him going to the offensive room, going to the defensive room, going back. It sets yourself up for problems. It's hard enough being able to work and hone your technique on one side of the ball. Khalil Mullins trying to do it in short yardage situations and then going over and also trying to do it on defense. Doesn't happen. Spreading yourself way too thin. That is my advice for Harbaugh and company. Jabril Peppers did it. I didn't like when Jabril Peppers did it. You know, how effective was Jabril Peppers at the Wildcat? Not very good, unless it was against Northern Illinois or something. You know, then he looked a little bit like Charles Woodson. But against good teams, he didn't really do anything. You know, Jabril Peppers being a Wildcat running in for 20 yards against Rutgers when they win 79-0 didn't impress me. And Jabril Peppers was the defensive player. Now, Jabril Peppers is like in that 0.01%. So is a guy like Miles Jack, who Michael is referencing. But that's just me. And I'm not, you might say I am harping on it. Okay, maybe I am. Michael asking how Turner went from a 4.6 to a 4.3. I don't know that answer, Michael. That's a very good question. I didn't know that he ran a 4.6 last year. And, so to me, I don't know the answer. That is a good question and one that I will pursue as the season gets closer. Yeah, hit that like button. I'm with Bryant and what he's having to say. Let's see what other people have to say about the practice news and notes. I'm going to give you a little bit. There was just some news that was put out by Josh Henschke on the Maize and Blue Review about practice. And he had a wide receiver that nobody's talking about that is emerging. And one of the wide receivers, Ronnie Bell, mentioned specifically this wideout who's having a great camp. And then he did talk about the quarterback competition, who I will mention it, but I got to be careful. Whenever I talk about the quarterback competition, I end up talking about it for like 10 minutes myself, and then I end up getting like 50 different people that want to make a point about it. So I'm going to save the quarterback conversation for a little bit. Ricky want to know, do we have any crystal projections? We'll go back. I've given you 12 predictions with the team. If you have any specifically that you want to know about it, I'll give you a prediction on anything that you want regarding Michigan football, the Big Ten, or college football. I've almost got, I'm doing my NFL work right now. I'm doing a little NFL work right now. I'll do some NFL work tonight when I'm watching the Lions exhibition game. Antoine, I am talking about your guy. And I have to admit, Antoine, who you see on the screen, Antoine has been ahead of the curve. For me, for camp news, for most of what's been going on with Michigan football, Antoine is ahead of the curve. Antoine's been talking about Zeke Berry before training camp. He was talking about camp and Zeke Berry, no doubt about it. Bryant mentioning that Grant was a super freak. That's right. He was on the list as well. And let's see what else. Brano, didn't Ben Mason play both ways for us? And he had a game-changing fumble on the goal line. Brano, I love the bench. He was like a Jim Harbaugh, like, this is Jim Harbaugh, fullback, the bench. He had a great nickname. Why is he called the bench? Because it feels like somebody took a bench and smacked you in the face. The bench was great. The bench fumbled at Wisconsin when the game was over at the half 2 years ago. And yeah, can you make a case? Maybe the bench would have fumbled anyways. But it's a good example of why, if you're the bench, You need to work on ball security. I know the Red Panda was so great at it a few years ago, and the Red Panda was awesome. Khalil Hill, how many touchdowns did he score? 16? Maybe even more than that. He was incredible. He was a big back that could mow it in from the goal line. So Harbaugh loves that. But I don't like guys that are part-time fullbacks or part-time running backs that you're expecting to give the ball to in the biggest situations in the game. Like Brando's talking about, at the goal line, a 4th and 1 from your own 40. You want to make Khalil Mullings your big back? Well, bring him over to the offense and just have him work on ball security, head down, driving his legs, working on his technique, honing his development as a short yardage running back. Let's not have him, get the 8 points of emphasis of hanging on to the ball. Oh, wait, he's got to go over to the linebacker meeting. All right. That's it for this week. BA asking, is Will Johnson getting beat in practice? I have not been down to practice. I have not seen any indications that Will Johnson is getting beat in practice. But is it possible? Yeah, like Will Johnson looks like he's going to be a great football player. He was the highest rated football player in the Big Ten out of any recruit coming in, and the number 4 or 5 recruit in all the country. So you don't come in with better credentials than Will Johnson, and he's a local guy, and his dad played for Michigan. But can you get beat in practice? Maybe. Could Roman Wilson, who is maybe running a sub 4.3, fly by him and maybe beat Will Johnson? Yeah. Yeah, he could. AR, I don't know who he's talking about. Talking about now Michael wants to put Devin Bush in. All right. Yeah, okay. I said enough on two-way players. Well, we're going to see. And, you listen to Harbaugh, and he just couldn't be any more complimentary to Sandra Still. Maybe he'll be voted a captain. I just loves the when you're doing that, obviously he loves the work ethic. He loves the leadership. And I was talking to a former player today. He said, what it's going to come down to for this team is who's the leaders. And if they all buy in and if they're all going the right way, this team can defend the Big Ten championship. There was no doubt in his mind. And I think this team does have a good chance. I think this team has a legitimate chance to go 11-0 and go down to Columbus, and we could talk about going and having an undefeated season. Now, that always sounds crazy when I hear other people saying it. Like, oh, here we go. And so if it sounds crazy to you, that's fair. You could say, how many times Michigan's had an undefeated season? Once in, 70 years. I know. Twice. Now there's 12 games. There was 11 back then. There were some of the 70s they got in. A couple ties there in that 80. It doesn't happen. So you're going to bet against something that happens like once in, your lifetime. Or are you thinking about, this team has a legit chance to go undefeated. I think they have a legit chance of going to that Ohio State game without a loss. Based on what I see personnel-wise, based on what I know about this team, what I saw last year and who's coming back, and based on the schedule. That's what I'm looking at. So we're in store for a fabulous season. The captain is weighing in on the feedback and says this year is going to feel like 2016. I'm personally worried about Nebraska. That feels like the 2016 Iowa game. Well, the 2016 Iowa game was on the road. So and at night, that 14-13 game. So I get you feeling a little bit worried about that, but that game is at Michigan Stadium. So, go ahead, feel nervous about that one, but that's the difference. Nebraska put 29 points up on Michigan last year. That was a very nerve-wracking game. If it feels like 2016 for you, that's good because Michigan went into that Iowa game with like 8-9-0 and ranked number 2 in the country. So if they can get to that point, what would be the game that would be closest to the 2016 Iowa game? I would say the 2022 Iowa game, because Michigan is playing there again for the first time since 2016. They are probably going to have to play that game at night. Michigan does not have success. It's not just 2016. You go back. It's been a long time since Michigan's been able to win at Iowa. But I think that Iowa's offense is terrible. And I don't think their defense is as good as it was last year. They lost 3/4 of that secondary. That was a big part of them having the 25 turnovers. I think Iowa's taking a step back. I don't think Iowa's all that good. Now, hey, was the 2016 Iowa team? They had like 3-4 losses. I think that Michigan can beat Iowa at night, in the morning, or at 3:30, whenever they play that game. On Fox, on NBC, on ESPN, on Google Prime or something. I don't know. There's no such thing. Amazon Prime. They'll beat them on TikTok. All right. Those are my practice thoughts. What do we have next? Oh, we've got 2 things that you're, I think, going to be a treat. A picture can tell 1,000 words. I love this photo from last week from the Michigan football Twitter account. You've got Juwan Howard and Jim Harbaugh. Howard addressing the Michigan football team. You can see this is in the back of the Glick Field House, or back of Schembechler, maybe. I guess it's in between. Whatever. Out there on the practice fields. But Howard just has that look on his face like he is proud to be a Michigan coach. He is honored to be addressing the team. And the players, you can just see them in the foreground. J.J. McCarthy, Keon Sabb, Donovan Edwards. I think that's C.J. Stokes with the, I don't know whether it was braids. Yeah, I think that's what they're called. McNamara up front. And Harbaugh is just as pleased as he could be looking at the basketball coach. It was a great scene watching these two embrace after the Michigan-Ohio State game. I love this photo. And while we're here and we got you for some pictures, let's get this picture up. And speaking of Donovan Edwards, is that him, number 7? That looks like him, or is that Makari Page, who also wears number 7? I'm going to say that's Page. Nonetheless, this is a Michigan video from. Here's Donovan Edwards. And Andrell Anthony. Had to see him. DJ Turner. That was Clink. Eric Hall. What's 85? I'm going to look at my roster. Iman Bennett. Oscar Smith throwing 2 guys around. Blake Corum. Will Johnson. There's a shot from Kate McNamara into Selzer. I don't know what song this is. Not the picture. There's a little bit of a catchy tune. No. Michigan picking this. Audio from Clink. And they put a minute or 2 of these out. Once in a while, they should let the camera run for 10 minutes. Let's go. If they don't like what they see, don't post it. I like it. And there he is. Oh. Okay, thank you. Okay, some feedback before we move forward and get to Juwan Howard. The schedule sets up for Michigan to be dominant offensively all year long. I agree with that. John has a Bleacher Report. He says has early rankings, has us outside of the top 10. All I can do is smile. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't know. Everybody can have their own polls. I don't know exactly. I didn't see what you're talking about with Bleacher Report. I don't know who works there. I mean, for all that could be some guy that is a Michigan State grad, and feeling like, hey, screw Michigan. Let's put him. I work for Bleacher Report. And, nothing against Bleacher Report. Maybe they do fine work. I don't know much about Bleacher Report. I will say, if that is true, seems like it's ridiculous. But you know what else works in the media is ridiculous takes. I mean, there's some guys that work at the radio that have based their careers on ridiculous takes. There are plenty of people on TV that that do the same thing. So ridiculous takes work. It makes people like go in and say, "This guy's an idiot," and then they watch them or read their story. And it works for people. Hey, what can I say? Maybe I shouldn't look down on takes, because if you just do it all the time, there's a lot of people that find it entertaining. So we should pick up some more. So you saw your picture of Juwan and company. And speaking of Juwan Howard, talked yesterday, and I didn't really like the audio. It was a little bit quiet, or I would play some of it for you. But I have pulled out some quotes from Juwan Howard, and I've also taken out what I thought was the most key in what Juwan had to say yesterday. They've got 3 games coming up in 10 days. The 5 freshmen will all be there. We're talking about Doug McDaniel, Terrace Reed, Greg Glenn, Jet Howard, and yes, Yo-Yo, who is on the Michigan team. And we all know that his name is Yusuf Kayat, expected to be with the team and play. And Howard doesn't have a set lineup. And what you have in 3 games, he's going to be able to play a lot of different combinations and a lot of different guys. These games are not going to be televised. They're not going to be streamed. So are we even going to know who's in the starting lineup? Maybe the aforementioned Tom Wyrot will tell us about, he'll at least maybe have a box score that we can look at. I don't know. Maybe he won't. Maybe we'll just have to go on a little game story that Wyrot, in between going, down in the Champs-Élysées and visited the Parthenon or whatever else he's going to do. He'll put together a little game story for us. You got Kobe Buffkin. Remember, hit that big shot against Ohio State last year. Michigan would not have beaten Ohio State and likely would have not made the NCAA tournament if it wasn't for that big shot by Buffkin. But Kobe Buffkin is a real gym rat. Juwan Howard knew that, and he is thinking that he could have that second-year leap. Mentioned like Franz Wagner. They've seen some guys in the program have these gigantic leaps. I mean, they're not saying that Buffkin is going to be like Franz, but that he has put on some weight and some good lean muscle, which is good for Buffkin, who they have talked about needing to get it done on the defensive end. And it sounds like he's doing everything he can. Stayed around in Ann Arbor when he could have been jet setting across the country. Stayed in Ann Arbor to work with the strength and conditioning coach Sanderson, and Howard appreciated and liked all of that. Also mentioned Terrence Williams II, or TW2. He is leaner. He is faster. And TW2, who you started knocking down a bunch of 3-pointers late and looks like he could be a nice little scorer for the Wolverines. He's going to be playing a larger role for the Maize and Blue in his junior year. And mentioned his son is got two of them now, but specifically Jace, and said that Jace has got a steady mid-range game and he is more consistent. Now, he talked all about the freshmen, including Jet, who I can't wait to see. Jet sounds like he could really be something. And the way that Juwan Howard talked about Yo-Yo, now he hasn't seen Yo-Yo actually in person, and so they recruited him off of his tape, which is amazing, but Yo-Yo to me seems like he's going to be a big impact or a bust. I mean, I don't know. That's all or nothing from Yo-Yo, but he's got the great name, and I've just watched his highlight reel, and there were a few things that I didn't like about, his 3-point shot and just the highlights that I was watching. But hey, let's wait and see what Yo-Yo brings to the table. Something that is being talked about the most for what Juwan Howard has to say is when he was asked about name, image, and likeness. Here we go. And instead of playing the sound, I actually have put the quotes up on the screen, and I am going to read it to you. I'm not going to try to sound like Juwan Howard. I am just going to read to you what he had to say when he is asked on whether name, image, and likeness has changed recruiting. This is what Juwan Howard had to say, quote, NIL. It's one of the things where it has helped some programs and what they've done in the transfer portal. For us, NIL hasn't hurt or helped me or the team when it comes to recruiting from the transfer portal. Have the conversations about NIL been brought up in recruiting? Yes, it has. Would I like to see more done for the program in the sense of some of the things happening in other basketball programs? Yes. I know this is going to be a storyline, and that's okay. Do we have a collective here? No. Do other programs have collectives? Yes. Could we be more proactive with the NIL and use more forward thinking? Yes. And I say we, I'm including myself, but our athletic department, as well as Michigan as a whole, we can do better. Now, what is Juwan Howard talking about? He's talking about the football team. And this is a tough spot. There's you might love basketball as much as football, or you love them both. They can both exist. And, people can love them both, and you don't have to differentiate between the two. That's the way it should be. But if you know Michigan football is, for some people, it's like basketball is just a filler until football, and football makes everything go. Basketball seats, 12,000. The football program and the football team seats 112,000. Like it's that vast of a gap for some people. And I think what Juwan Howard is saying here, do we have a collective for the basketball program? No. Do we have one for the football program? Yes. Juwan Howard wants a collective for the basketball program. And if you don't have a collective for the basketball program, how is Juwan Howard, last year he brought in 2 5-stars, but how is Juwan Howard expected to, there's a player that you're probably familiar with that Michigan is recruiting right now named Isaiah Collier. Just a couple weeks ago, he was on campus. Collier is a 5-star. He is a 6'4" point guard. He is the number 4 ranked overall player in the country by Rivals out of Marietta, Georgia. Michigan is right there, along with USC and UCLA, and I think USC is the other team. 3 or 4 teams and Michigan, they got a real legit shot at getting Collier. And Collier has said, I'm not, NIL isn't first and foremost and all that. And you get all that. But when you're a 5-star and one of the top 4 players in the country, look at Caleb Houston. He had a disappointing season. And he got $4 million guaranteed by getting picked early in the second round. 5-stars are likely only going to be around for a year. So they are going to look for some name, image, and likeness money. And those other schools that are mentioned, and 2 of those that are going to be in the Big Ten, maybe not the time by Collier's playing in it, but UCLA and USC. We know USC is paying money with a collective to their players. So it feels to me like Michigan really needs to get this going. Collier's getting ready to make a decision at the end of this month. Michigan, behind the scenes, needs to make it known if they want him. Now, maybe they're like, look, we don't want to get involved in giving a 5-star, $1 million. You're never going to get a 5-star again if you're playing it like Michigan has at least talked about playing it this year, like you're going to reward the players who stay around. Collier's likely not staying around. So if you want, I don't know why you're recruiting a 5-star if you don't have a collective that's willing to pay millions of dollars. I don't get that. Was it a waste of time? Is Collier really going to come to Michigan and be like, well, I'm going to pass on $2 million, maybe, to go to Michigan when USC was offering me, 2 or 3. I mean, come on, what are we talking about here? It's just something to think about. And I know there's some people that don't like, I was listening to one member of the media who covers Michigan who was asked on a national show about name, image, and likeness, and he was like, I don't have any opinion because I don't follow it. Really? Talking about the biggest story in college sports? Probably because he doesn't know exactly what's going on. But you know enough. You know that Michigan is not weighing into the waters that are murky like a lot of the other programs. And, they're taking a wait-and-see approach. Well, they're not going to get these top players, and that could be okay with you, and it might not be. Collier is going to be a great one to keep an eye on. I would just like to say this about the, Michigan collective, and it could end up working. Like there's smarter people than me that are involved, that are working behind the scenes, that are trying to get it going with the athletic director and maybe Ono. Santa Ono, the president, and they've got to work with the regents, and there's a lot of things. It's not just some guy like me sitting around saying, "Let's go, give this kid $1 million so he can come in." There are people that are working towards it. But it's the wheels of justice. They always say move slow. The wheels at Michigan move even slower than the wheels of justice. Michigan's collective is moving along at the pace of erosion, but maybe it'll break through here in time for them to score some big-time players. I was talking to somebody today that was saying, yeah, you know what? The problem is that Ward Manuel, he's got 25 other programs, and there's a lot of people that are giving money to the programs for facilities that are spreading them out with the other 25 programs, and Ward doesn't want to be the guy to say, look, we're siphoning off, or at least cutting in half, these monies that are coming in, and we're throwing it all towards football and basketball. Or in this case, just football. So those are tough things to do when you got a lot of mouths to feed, and everybody knows, though, that football, they should separate football and basketball, but they've never been able to do that. Title IX saying, no, you're not doing that. So that's it. And that's where I'm at when it comes down to the collective and what's going on. Somebody is asking me about somebody else doing a YouTube. Like, I'm good for, people do other things, and, other people have shows, but I don't know this person, so I'm not going to comment on anybody's YouTube show talking about Michigan. I know there's a lot of dudes. I remember looking at this dude, and he was like running some Michigan podcast. And I'm like, who's this cat? And he's like got 45,000 views and everything. And he's on there just sitting at a little desk with a book of Bo, acting like he knows all about Michigan football. I was like, wow, this guy's running the 45,000 views. This nerd, Ferris, is talking about NIL, says there's nothing really going on there. And saying that image is everything in Michigan leadership, NIL doesn't help that. Yeah, I think Michigan is being dragged along on it, Ferris, talking about name, image, and likeness. But I also think, look, there's, the couple old sayings. And one is when, people have a lot of money, you say, well, how did they get a lot of money? They got it by not just throwing it all out willy-nilly. They did it by, analyzing what's been going on. So Michigan, they have a lot of good business people in places over there, and they are thinking about all of the different things that could happen. I do think I would love to be in some of the conversation, because there is a conversation to be had with name, image, and likeness, where it was like Michigan's got just at the quarterback position, and this is where we'll get to the quarterback news from practice. Michigan's got J.J. McCarthy and Cade McNamara. They're in a really good spot when it comes to the quarterback position this year. And technically, both of these guys could stay around for 3 more years, including this year. That's a long time, both of them. Nobody thinks that's going to happen unless you listen to that hot take guy on Tuesday who said it could happen. That was a hot take. You could make an argument that Michigan should not have thrown millions of dollars at Dante Moore, considering they have 2 quarterbacks on the roster. And if you're going to give Dante Moore $3, $4, $5 million, what are you giving the quarterback at Michigan next year to stay around for his junior year, whether it's Cade McNamara or J.J. McCarthy? $6 million? $9 million? So you don't have a salary cap. And no, it's not your money specifically, but you are thinking about that is a lot of money. You're going to have to give that money out anyways, or the guy's going to hide out of here. So it is easy for me to cut up the pie and say, yeah, give $1 million here, give $3 million to Dante, give $9 million to JJ, give all of that. It is also, if I was working in the athletic department and I already had a lot of, a great job in the athletic department, and I knew that donations were coming in, and the top 10 donors now are all calling up and saying, look, we're donating millions of dollars for the facilities and everything. Now you want us to come over the top and give millions of dollars to high school players. And you're saying, wait a second. No, we just want you to give the money to us. We want you to give the money to us, not necessarily to players. Or we want you to give us the same amount of money that you were giving, to make everything run, to keep the power on, the facility, the Star Wars, to keep up with the Joneses and everything else. So we look really good. But we also want you then to, in addition, to come over the top and give millions of dollars to these players. And so those are the conversations. It sounds easier. I'm going to tell you, it sounds a lot easier giving up the money to the big time players than it does, and with the different things that are behind the scenes, and plus the politics that are involved that I just walked you through, with regents, a new president, an athletic director, split donations, 25 other programs that are like, where's our the basketball program that's saying, hey, you got a Michigan, you got a football collective, where's our collective? Something to think about. All right, in terms of practice and the quarterback position, Ferris wants to talk a little like this. He has an understanding that high school players sign with an NI company and they do work for them. That can happen. You can sign now, Ferris. But here's the one thing that you also need to know. Certainly there can be just a booster out there. I could be a Michigan booster and never talk to Ward Manuel or Jim Harbaugh and Juwan Howard, and I could say, I want to give $5 million to Isaiah Collier. I could do that. And, Juwan Howard probably like that. And Ward Manuel would probably like that. He would also get me on that donor list where a bunch of other people would be calling me up and say, hey, you gave $5 million. Can you give us a little bit of money here for the facilities now that you've been donating? I mean, you're really engaged now. But that's really not how it works. And what happens is you do have some conversations, even though you're not supposed to. And this is the part that, gets tricky for people. You still have to have some communications with somebody from the basketball program. As they want to say, like, well, what if this is Papa Khan? I like it when they call him Big Papa. And if looking for $1 million, but maybe Michigan, I think they really do like Papa. But what if they if they didn't like Papa and I was waving $2 million at Papa? You got to have some kind of communication there, even though technically you're not supposed to be giving money up front. You're technically not supposed to be, working for the university. I mean, this is it. This is that gray area that Michigan is, having a difficult time with, and the communication with the collectives and everything else. So there you go. Okay. In terms of practice, and right now we are going to talk about practice. There has been news on the quarterback situation for Michigan. And the latest up to yesterday is that both players have been making some plays and some mistakes and moving ahead and getting equal reps, and that it was too close to call. But as of early this afternoon, Cade McNamara has been moved up where you would put him as the number one QB for Michigan, QB1. That's your quarterback. If Michigan's opener was tomorrow, Cade McNamara would be your starter. If Michigan was opening up a week from tomorrow, Cade McNamara would be getting the starting reps on Monday, getting into game week. Cade McNamara has been taking care of the football better than J.J. McCarthy and has hence moved up on the depth chart. It says Cade McNamara or J.J. McCarthy. Right now you can erase the or. Cade McNamara is the starting quarterback for Michigan. Now, you've got, sorry, my screen went out for a second. You have 3 non-conference games where you could play Mozzie Smith at quarterback and win those games. You can play J.J. McCarthy a lot against Kawan and probably Maryland. Although Maryland's getting into a lot of buzz here, I saw the Big Ten Network, Jerry DiNardo. Now, they hadn't seen all the teams, but they're like, Maryland's the best team that we've seen. Talia Tagovailoa. I mean, teams get hyped. Tagovailoa didn't play really well against Michigan, and he's a gunslinger. He's as likely to throw as many to Michigan as he is to the Terps. But since Michigan went into Maryland last year and put up 59 points at it, Michigan fans are looking at that game a lot like I am, that they could probably play Mozzie Smith at quarterback in that game too. And so they got 4 games that they could experiment. So the news today, you shouldn't be down. You shouldn't be. I wouldn't if I was a Cade fan. Like, you can be a Cade fan and a JJ fan, can you? Or you got to distinguish between one or the other. I think, like, you want the best. You hope the coaches are putting the best guy in position. They're both still going to compete and play, and it doesn't mean that it's over. Remember, most people thought that McNamara was going to start the season anyways at Colorado State. So today is a confirmation of what most people have been saying all along. But McCarthy, it's only going to take a practice or two, a turnover or 2 by Cade, and an outstanding day or 2 of practice from JJ, where you could put the or back up there and you can move JJ back in front. Maybe we'll be sitting here next Friday and talking about what a difference a week makes. McCarthy has made a move. I know Adrian's saying you can be a fan of both. I know sometimes it doesn't feel like you are. Sometimes it feels like you've got to distinguish, like, if you like Cade, it means that you don't like puppies. How could you not like J.J. McCarthy? If you think Cade's the best guy for the job, I like you 2 different guys by my. I don't know why that screen has gone out a couple times. I'll work on that. Maybe I should just say, hey. So the people that are watching here are just one quarterback. Does Howard like the 2 quarterback system? Great question. Does Juwan Howard like to play 2 quarterbacks? It'd be great to throw, because Juwan would have an opinion. He loves football. Juwan, I think, is going to be like me. And he's going to say, we're going to let these guys, fight it out for practice, and the expectation is going to be for the position, whoever you put out there. But you better be careful. Jim Harbaugh Here's my second bit of advice. Here I am dispensing advice out to all the coaches that have been down there playing again. This one on 2 quarterback systems. Michigan didn't really have a 2 quarterback system last year. Cade McNamara was their starter. In blowout games, look at the snaps. J.J. McCarthy got in there and was allowed to play. In the big games, Wisconsin, Nebraska. Did J.J. McCarthy even take a snap against Nebraska? Michigan State, he was in there, and we could talk all about that for a couple hours. Ohio State, you saw just a little sprinkling of McCarthy. That is not a quarterback rotation. That is not a 2 quarterback system. That is, we're playing the freshmen because we went on to lose them to the transfer portal, and we're just giving them a little sugar. I'm expecting once they get into October to have a system like they had last year. And you could say, no, they'll have to play JJ a lot more if he's not playing. Well, then that's dangerous. You start playing a quarterback more, you start doing it like you did against Michigan State last year. You get down there, Cade McNamara had 2 shots at the end zone and both footballs a little bit high and not catchable passes that he threw in there. McCarthy came in, fumbled the ball out of bounds. Michigan kicked the field goal. You don't want a 2 quarterback system and where you're going to start playing McCarthy more in bigger games. If that's how it plays out, you're going to have your quarterback 1 in McNamara pressing a little bit. You don't want that. 2 quarterback systems don't work. That's why coaches don't do it. How many 2 quarterback systems are there in the NFL? Get out of here with Taysom Hill. Yeah, did Jacoby Brissett get in on the goal line when, or Trey Lance? You know, are there some packages and some short yardage? That's different. You don't have 2 quarterback systems because they blow up in your face. They get you fired, and they lose you ball games. So you got to be careful. You can do anything you want in September. You can play Kenneth Grant at quarterback. You can play Sam Stamos and Mozzie Smith at quarterback against Colorado State, and Michigan will win. So go ahead and divvy it up however you want. But you get to Iowa City at night, and you start doing more than, playing McCarthy, if that's how it's going to end up working, a couple snaps or 2. That is, I'll give you the cliche. It is a recipe for disaster. Okay, I want to end it on a good note. And if you're looking up at the screen, that is the good note, because if you want to know what's going on with Michigan, you want to know what their next move is in recruiting on the field, on the hardwood, on the ice, the diamond, you join the Maize and Blue Review today. Go to michigan.rivals.com. We're going to come back on Monday with full energy and steam. I was talking to Thursday's football analyst, Jim Scarcelli, and Scar has, we talked about doing this, but Scarcelli was like, I want to diagram some plays. And I would throw some videos up for him, but he's like, I want to diagram some plays. Scar has figured out how to diagram plays. And so now he was showing me the Ohio State game. He was drawing an X. He was drawing an O. He was talking about a seal here, and you get a seal down here. And that's how this play. And I can't wait for Thursday because Scar's X's and O's, he will go to the whiteboard. That's going to be really exciting. So stay tuned for that. We will talk with you on Monday. Thanks, everybody, for watching, listening, reviewing, subscribing, all of those things. Have a great weekend, and we will talk with you on Monday at 1 o'clock. See you then.